happened with a crash. Back in December of 2009, I was transferred from the Uniform Division to the Major Case Crime Scene Team with the New Mexico State Police. And I stayed in that capacity as an agent until, I believe, November of 2003, at which time I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, where I ran the Major Case Crime Scene Team out of Albuquerque for about a year and a half. And then I was transferred to the, about 8 months. And then I was transferred to the full-time crash reconstruction sergeant for the New Mexico State Police, and that's my current assignment.
When you talk about crash reconstruction, is a component of that tire track analysis?
It is. So one of the things I've done as well is I taught the New Mexico State Police Academy our recruits in the field of crash investigation. I also taught the Law Enforcement Academy from the year of 2005 to 2012. And one of the things we did while we were teaching was to take a track car out to our track and demonstrate various kinds of tire marks and how they were laid down. So I have had experience in that.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert?
In traffic crash reconstruction, I have in both state and federal court.
Give the court a little bit more idea of your training specifically in tire track analysis.
So I've had about 928 hours of crash investigation training. As far as just specifically on tire marks, a lot of his experience actually saying, okay, well, I want to see what an acceleration mark is or a yaw mark is, and getting a vehicle and actually demonstrating it and performing that.
And about how many times do you think in the course of your career you've been tasked to conduct that analysis?
We taught 2 state police academies a year for, what was that, about 7 years, plus the Law Enforcement Academy. Sometimes we just do one, so at least twice a year, maybe 3 times a year.
Your Honor, at this time the state would proffer Sergeant Milligan as an expert in tire track analysis.
Without objection.
Thank you. Sergeant Milligan, were you involved in any part in the investigation of a case involving the death of Rio Rancho police officer Greg Nigel Benner?
I was, ma'am.
Could you tell the jury what your part was in the investigation?
So on May 26th, I was contacted by Agent Mark Lucero, who's an agent with the Major Case Crime Scene Team in Albuquerque. He had asked me to come to the scene and look at some tire marks that were out at the scene where the incident occurred. And I arrived there about 9 o'clock in the morning. I signed into a crime scene log, and then Agent Lucero gave me a brief and then kind of walked me around the scene and pointed out the tire marks he'd like me to give an analysis on.
Okay. And when he pointed those those marks out, what did you do?
So essentially looked at them, looked at different parts of the mark itself, and then once I was done at the scene, which is about 9:45 in the morning, later on that day I went to our New Mexico State Police office in our garage, where I found the vehicle that was suspected to be at the scene when the tire marks were created.
Now, as part of, to explain your testimony, I believe that you previously had selected a series of photographs to assist in your testimony, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, I think these have all been stipulated to, one was already in evidence, states 184, and then we have states 452 through 461, it looks like. Yes.
Your Honor, no objection. We can serve the sergeant.
Could I ask the officer to step down? If you could step down, Sergeant Milligan, and I'm going to hand you the exhibits, and I'll let you select the ones that you feel will best explain your testimony, and the exhibit numbers are on the back, so if you could just tell the jury what exhibit number you're referring to before you put them on the Elmo. Yes.
So this is State's Exhibit 184.
What are we looking at here?
So this is a tire mark This is one of the tread patterns on the vehicle, on the Dodge Durango. So what you're looking at, this vehicle had mismatched tires. 3 of the tires were the same size, the required tire size for this vehicle. This particular tire had a very characteristic tire tread pattern. So if you can see in this area here, you have that kind of siping pattern, kind of that 45-degree. Now, one thing to keep in mind about this tire here is the photo was taken from behind, so the front of the vehicle is that way. So the tire is essentially rolling straight forward. So keep in mind, just kind of remember that siping pattern. That will become relevant here in a minute. So this is State's Exhibit 459. So this is the tire mark that was left at the scene. What's important about this is what you're seeing, the mark is here. And it's in a curved pattern. And the mark is left just on a piece of basically tar, patch of material on the asphalt. So what's relevant about this is that tar, it's kind of like punch. Heats up, it gets a little soft. It's not exhibited on the asphalt before the patch mark or after it is. So if you think about putty, you've got some slippage in there. And also if you look, it's kind of dark and then light and then dark. So it's dark here, and there's a light patch, dark, and then light, and dark and light.
I think there's a zoom button there somewhere too, if you need to use that. So, yeah. That will help you out.
Okay, which button is it?
This zooms, that goes out.
Okay. All right, so that's a clearer view. A little better. All right. So if you can see that, you kind of have a darker pattern, and then light, and then dark, and then light. This is State's Exhibit 460. So what you can see here is on the left side of the screen, you can see part of that tire mark. On the right side, you don't see it. But on the left side, if you look, you really can't tell a definition of the tire mark. And the reason for that is the tire slipping on that soft kind of tar surface. The tire is just spinning a little bit.
Would that be just from normal driving away, or does it indicate anything about the way the vehicle was leaving?
So this vehicle had 3 of the tire marks that were the size supposed to be on the vehicle. So 235, 75, R15. One of the other tires was a 215, 70R 15. Essentially what the 215, 70R is it's a smaller diameter. So you think about when you press on, now this is on the rear of the vehicle. It's a rear-wheel drive Dodge SUV. So the vehicle wants to put the most power to whatever it can spin the tire easiest, right? And you've got a smaller rolling radius, or a smaller diameter. So the motor is trying to send power to that tire because it's easier to get power. Problem is that tire's on the left side. So, and also if you think about it, if you're going around a corner, a right-hand corner like in this case, the car is waiting up on the left side. So it actually wants to spin that right rear tire. But it's trying to give traction to the tire that's got that smaller rolling radius. But that tire is on the asphalt, and it won't spin because it has too much friction. It's got too much grip. So the other tire is slipping, and it's trying to put power over to the other side, and it's slipping back and forth. That's why we're getting this kind of dark acceleration, followed by a spot, followed by a dark acceleration. So as you can see on the left side, there's no clear print right there. It's because that tire slipped a little bit in that tar. All right, so this is the vehicle. So driver's side, which would be this side here, that's got that kind of smaller diameter tire on the back. So this is State's Exhibit 454. So if you look at this tire tread pattern, it's largely just kind of side to side. It's got some sipes in the middle for it's falling like rain. So if you will, just kind of remember that first tire print that we looked at that had that 45-degree siping pattern. This is State's Exhibit 455. This is the passenger side front tire. This is more kind of like an all-terrain block pattern. This is State's Exhibit 456. So that's that block pattern from that tire. This is State's Exhibit 457. All right, so this is the passenger side rear tire. If you look at it, you can see those siping patterns, those kind of 45 degrees. This is State's Exhibit 461. Okay, so what you're seeing, the vehicle that's in the back is Officer Bennett's unit. So essentially, that mark is coming across that patching material. It's coming towards us. So if you remember that mark.
Can you take the pen and show them where you're referring to?
Okay.
No, I mean over here. You can do it right here.
All right, so this here is Officer Benner's vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And the mark is here, coming across the patching material.
Okay, thanks.
And once again, this is State's Exhibit 184. There's that tire mark. So this picture was taken from the rear of the vehicle. So essentially that tire would be rolling that way. So if you look at those siping patterns, they're basically pointing towards the direction they want to go. So as they go up, that's which way this thing wants to go. So unfortunately with the resolution, I'm having trouble finding what I know is there. So with the resolution of the camera, it's hard to see, but those patterns are essentially in this tire mark, and they're going down like this, which shows the direction the vehicle is coming this direction. So that's how I can isolate. This tire was a tire that was slipping on the asphalt patch material based off the imprintation of that kind of 45-degree siphoning pattern. So by looking at the slipping on the tar, it appears this vehicle was under heavy acceleration and is essentially accelerating away from the vehicle and towards Southern. So the vehicle would have been accelerating in this direction, away from the park that's used.
So were you able to determine then whether or not that acceleration mark was caused by the tire on the Dodge Durango?
It certainly looks like it. With all the
And Sergeant Milligan, this is State's Exhibit 397. Does that show where the acceleration mark was that as you observed it?
Yes.
Okay.
So the acceleration mark is Officer Benner's unit is parked here, and the acceleration mark is here.
Okay. Thank you. Take the witness stand. Pass the witness.
There are no questions by the defense of this witness. Okay. Will you release?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge.
Call your next witness. Officer.
If we take a seat, let me swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and the penalty of law?
I do.
Take a seat.
Agent Lucero, can you please state your name, introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Yes, my name is Mark Lucero, and I'm an agent with New Mexico State Police Crime Scene Team.
And can you spell your first and last name, please? For the
First
record?
name Mark, M-A-R-K, last name Lucero, L-U-C-E-R-O.
And Agent Lucero, is that correct? Or Sergeant Lucero?
Agent.
Agent Lucero. You indicated that you were employed with the New Mexico State Police, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long have you been employed with the New Mexico State Police?
Been with the state police for approximately 7.5 years. 3 of those years have been on the full-time crime scene team.
Okay. And how did you start your career? I mean, in what, as a patrol officer, or how?
I began my career in Taos, New Mexico. I was stationed in Taos for approximately 2 years. Then I was transferred to Cuba, New Mexico as a patrolman. Did approximately 3 years there. And then I was transferred over, or I applied for crime scene agent and was accepted 3 years ago, and I've been in that capacity since.
Now, this has been with the New Mexico State Police, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Your entire employment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about your education?
Yes, sir. So I received over 1,100 hours of officer training through the academy, through the State Police Academy. I've also received over 900 hours of advanced training to include the National Forensic Academy in Tennessee. I spent 10 weeks out there. I have also attended Bevel Gardner for blood stain pattern analysis and for shooting reconstruction or crime scene reconstruction. And I've attended Michael Haig for shooting reconstruction.
Okay. Now, Agent Lucero, back in May of 25th of 2015, were you called out to assist in the investigation of the death of Officer Greg Benner in Rio Rancho?
Yes, sir. I was assigned at approximately 10 p.m. that evening by Sergeant Soriano to proceed to the scene.
Okay, can you explain to the jury how you got assigned and where you were at and what occurred?
Okay. At the time I was home, I received a phone call from my Sergeant Mark Soriano to proceed to the intersection of Pine Tree Street and Southern Boulevard. He informed me at that point that an officer had been shot and that Rio Rancho was requesting our assistance in processing the scene.
Okay. Now, when you arrived there, were you assigned any duties at the time?
Sergeant Soriano informed me that, or requested that I was, or assigned me to be the crime scene manager of that scene.
Okay, now, when you talk about crime scene manager, what are we talking about? What are your duties?
As a crime scene manager, basically, I'm in charge of analyzing the information that we have at hand, as well as with the scene, and using my training and experience to allocate resources to the different tasks that need to be performed or, I guess, investigated at that time.
Now, when you arrived there on May 25th, what did you first do when you arrived there?
Well, upon my arrival, I pulled into the crime scene. There was several Rio Rancho police units. I witnessed crime scene tape stretched across the crime scene. I proceeded inside the initial or the outside perimeter of the crime scene, and I made contact with Sergeant Soriano, Agent Vargas, and Lieutenant Shane Arthur.
Okay, so when you got there, your testimony is that Rio Rancho had already taped off the scene.
Yes, sir. The scene was secure.
I guess that's a better word. The scene was secure.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, was there a crime log established at that time?
Yes, there was.
Crime scene log, and can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so typically on crime scenes, there's a log that officers are in charge of, and so anybody that crosses the inner perimeter of that crime scene, in order to keep count of or keep track of who's in that crime scene, you have to sign into the crime scene log. I did not sign into the crime scene log at that time because I was entering the outer perimeter as opposed to the inner perimeter. I did log in at a later time.
Okay. Now, when you get there, did you take over the investigation, or did you just assist and direct people?
Well, upon my initial arrival, when I made contact with Sergeant Soriano, I was informed there was some confusion as to who was going to take the crime scene portion of the investigation. I was notified by Sergeant Soriano that some Rio Rancho technicians had been out on scene, or field officers had been out on scene, and they had already placed some yellow evidence cones on the scene and taken some pictures, and I believe collected item 1, which was supposedly the lapel video from Officer Benner's person. I was informed at that point that Agent Steve Montano from the State Police was going to be sort of the case agent from State Police side, and I was informed that Rick Romero from Rio Rancho was going to be the crime scene or the case agent from the Rio Rancho side.
Okay. And when you got there, who was there? Were there other agents from New Mexico State Police present when you got there?
Yes, sir. Myself, Agent Phil Vargas, Sergeant Soriano, and Lieutenant Shane Arthur. And then Agent Roger Brunson arrived shortly after, I believe around 12 o'clock is when he arrived.
And upon your arrival, being the crime scene manager, I guess you would say, what did you do?
Well, once it was determined that we were going to take over the investigation, we attended a couple of briefings, one by Rodney Montoya and the other one by Dennis Park. Once we, received the information from them at approximately 12:55, we conducted our initial walkthrough of the scene.
Okay. And what did you observe when you walked through?
Initially, signed into the crime scene log, right? Now we are entering into the inner crime scene perimeter. Signed into the crime scene log and began walking from the east side of the scene towards the west. On the far east side off of Pine Tree is where where I observed the police patrol unit. I observed 4 casings on the pavement, blood stains, some Cheetos that were scattered throughout the scene, Officer Benner's duty belt, just various items belonging to Officer Benner. And so I continued my way through the scene up onto the Arby's. There wasn't a whole lot that I identified at that point in the parking lot, sort of west of Officer Benner's unit.
Okay. And after doing was other agents with you through that walkthrough?
Yes, sir. Sergeant Soriano, Agent Roger Brunson, and Agent Phil Vargas were with me.
Okay. And what do you do initially when you enter the scene in an initial walkthrough? Are you just trying to observe the area to get a better look at it? What is your intent? What's your intention?
Again, we enter the scene initially just to orientate ourselves with the scene based on the information that we have at the time from debriefs, and then also to sort of get an idea of what items of evidence we have. The other key component into that is looking to see if we have perishable evidence. So items of evidence like maybe tire impressions, right? That if the wind's blowing, that they could be lost because we didn't collect those items right away. So those are sort of the type of items we look for in our initial walkthrough.
Okay. Now, you did an initial walkthrough with Agent Vargas, Sergeant Soriano, Lieutenant Shane Arthur, what you're saying.
Lieutenant didn't, at that point, he didn't accompany us on the walkthrough.
Okay.
He was busy collecting the video from the lapel camera that had been taken from Officer Benner's person.
That was the item number 1 that Rio Rancho had already placed a code on?
Yes, sir. That Field Officer Justin Garcia collected, I believe.
Now, at some point, did you, after doing the initial walkthrough, what was your next step? After viewing the scene, what do you do next?
Well, once we complete our initial walkthrough, I assigned Agent Roger Brunson and Agent Phil Vargas to begin documenting the scene. Agent Roger Brunson a document from the west side, sort of eastward, and Agent Phil Vargas a document from the east side of the scene westward. And the only reason I did that was because of the size of the scene. And the reason we do document the scene with still photography is to basically document it as we found it.
Okay. And did Officer Vargas, or Agent Vargas and Sergeant Serrano document the scene?
Agent Vargas and Agent Brunson did.
Oh, Agent
Yes,
Brunson.
yes, sir.
Okay. And by documenting the scene, what does that entail?
Taking overview photography, still photography with cameras.
Okay. And do they place anything near items?
Nothing is placed, nothing is moved unless there was perishable evidence, as I explained earlier. In this particular case, there was none, so they documented the scene as we found it.
Okay. Now, let's go back here. Agent Lucero, did you at any time take any photographs or do anything there at the scene?
I did not take any photographs. I did, however, identify items of evidence that were on scene at a later point.
Okay. Did you direct the agents to document it, or was this after the fact?
At approximately 3:30, I believe, I was notified that Mr. Romero had been taken into custody, at which point I assigned Agent Brunson to proceed to that scene off of Broadway and Rio Bravo and process that scene. And at the same time, I assigned Agent Phil Vargas to document all the bloodstains and also document any items of evidence that I identified with photography.
Okay. Now, in your review of the scene and after
I labeled them with green evidence markers.
Okay. Let me show you what's been admitted as states exhibits, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36.
No objection.
Can you, let me turn this around. Let me just put this up. Do you recall seeing that at the scene on May 25th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I wish this thing is a little better. That's out of focus. There we go. What we're looking at this point, let me just go up a little bit. Agent Lucero.
Yes, sir. So this was a photo that was taken. This is sort of a mid-range photo or a close-up. And basically what this photo does is it describes the various items of evidence. As you can tell, the green markers are what I placed on scene, and the yellow evidence markers are what was placed on scene by Rio Rancho PD. But each number correlates to a different piece of evidence that we collected.
Okay. States Exhibit 32. Can you indicate at this point what that photograph is documenting?
Yes, sir. So this is documenting it. It's sort of a close-up of the previous picture. And what this is item number G3, as in green 3, was identified as a 9mm Luger casing. And as you can see, the yellow number 3 is still on place, and that was placed by Rio Rancho. And then G4, or the green evidence marker 4, was also a 9mm Luger casing that we found on scene.
Okay. Do you see a number 5? It's kind of up on the top level there.
Yes, sir.
What is it documenting?
And number 5 was also labeled and identified as a 9mm Luger casing.
And when you talk about casing, what are we talking about? There's cartridges, which is the unspent or unfired, the actual bullet we lay people would consider bullet. We call it cartridge, correct?
Yeah, so a cartridge is an entire bullet. A casing is what is expelled out of the chamber once the projectile has been fired. The projectile and the copper jacket or brass jacket, whatever is, that's the part of the bullet that travels through the barrel and goes downrange.
Now, as part of your crime scene management, is there a diagram legend that is created as you're looking at evidence or collecting evidence?
Yes, sir. So typically, we'll identify all the evidence. In this particular case, we identified all the evidence that was on scene that we had located at the point. It wasn't until approximately 6:55 when Agent Clint Norris arrived on scene and Agent Roger Brunson came back from the Rio Bravo scene, and I assigned them to document the scene with the Leica scanner. So there was a diagram that correlates with the numbers.
Okay. And is this what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Kind of. And it has corresponding numbers to indicate approximately where the location of evidence or items were located.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you talk about G2, G3, G3, G4, and G5. That would be around this area here. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you indicated that those were casings.
Spent casing, yes,
Spent
sir.
casings. Let me show you what's been admitted as States 33. What is G2?
So this photo is a photo of the same area, and G2 was also identified as a spent 9mm casing.
Okay. So wherever the spent casing is located, that's where you place a cone,
Yes, sir.
and that's where you photograph it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. And again, I show you, just Now, let me hand you what's, now, were these spent casings collected? At some point were they collected?
Yes, they were collected, packaged, and initialed by me.
Okay. Let me hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 474 for identification. I'm not going to ask you to open it. Does that, when you say packaged, what does the outside of the package indicate?
Well, so number one, this isn't the package that they were originally packed in. I believe this item was packaged by Rio Rancho at a later date and sent to the lab. But there are numbers on the package that indicate the different case numbers or green evidence numbers.
Okay, and when you say that it's been packaged by Rio Rancho to be sent, are you indicating it's being sent to the crime lab in Santa Fe?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe that's where they sent that.
Does it appear, well, we'd ask to move State's Exhibit 474.
JJ, 474 applies to, I'm assuming, the shell cases alone.
Well, Your Honor, what it has, because of the way the package is located, is indicated, it does have the casings involved as well as the, I believe there's another item. Now, I can open it and separate the casings at this point, Your Honor.
Judge, here's what, the defense would be more than willing, without objection on the shell casing, presumably that's what's in the package. I have no reason to believe it's not. If we're surprised and somehow there's something else other than what we've talked about previously, what's been identified, we can raise it at that point in time, but we can admit it now, subject to any objections later, if there's something surprising.
All right. We'll do it that way.
Okay. I'll just leave it right here for now. Is that okay? Okay. Now, Agent Vargas, in your initial walkthrough, as I indicated, Lucero, I apologize. Agent Lucero, is there, again, not only a diagram of where the scene is and where every item has been located, but also a kind of a chart as to what was collected and marked, like a legend?
Yes, sir. So attached to the diagram is a legend, and the, I guess, measurements are taken from a reference point that is selected by, in this case, Agent Norris.
Okay. I'm going to go through that legend and just kind of show you to see if you recall seeing these items. I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 34, 35, and 36. Is number 6. What is number, oops, maybe. What is number 6 depicting?
I believe number 6 was was sort of a plastic container appearing to come from sort of the center console of the vehicle. It's probably the best description I could have given it at the time.
Okay, and would this be State's Exhibit 35, closer photograph of that exhibit, of that evidence?
Of G6?
Number 6, yes.
Yes, sir. That's just a closer view.
And State's Exhibit 36, photograph indicate the location in comparison to all of the other items around that area.
Yes, it does.
Was that item collected by your agent?
Yes, I collected it and
You
packaged it.
Okay. Now, you also, when you did a walkthrough through the crime scene, did you observe any type of motel keys or hotel keys?
Yes, sir. I believe there was 2 on scene.
Okay. Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 37. Would that be the motel key? I guess it would be card.
Yes, sir. That was a key card belonging to the Quality Inn.
Okay. And, of course, State's Exhibit 38. A closer view of the hotel key.
Yes, sir.
And also State's Exhibit 39. Basically an overview of where that key was found in comparison to all the other objects. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And of course, State's Exhibit 40, similar.
Yes, sir. They're all same picture, just a little closer in.
When you place cones around the evidence at this point, do you try to place it as close to the evidence as possible without disturbing the evidence or moving the evidence?
Yes, sir. So once the item is identified and labeled, the label goes as close to the piece of evidence as possible without disturbing it, and it's also diagrammed in that same fashion. So the evidence nor the cones are moved until the diagram is complete.
Okay. Now, also, Agent Lucero, at some point did you observe a Cheetos bag?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Let me show you what State's Exhibit 43. And is that the bag that you observed?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And it's marked as what?
So initially by Rio Rancho PD, it was marked as item number Y6 or yellow 6. I identified it as G11.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 42. And can you show approximately, let me see, where number 6 or G6 is located?
Well, G11 was located approximately in this location here.
Okay. Now, there's red markers and there's green markers.
Yes, sir.
Why the difference in colors?
So in this particular scene, we knew we had items of evidence, or I had already identified several items of evidence that I had marked with green. The red markers indicate suspected blood stains. And so they sort of, I guess, show where the suspected blood stains were. And those were items that Agent Vargas identified and labeled.
Okay. Now, with these items, G6, the plastic container, G7, the room key card from Quality Inn. I also noticed at this point, Officer Vargas is on State's Exhibit 40. What are these white things that are located right there?
Those were 2 Q-tip swabs that
And
were
you
located on
documented
scene.
those?
I documented them and collected them as well.
And their number?
I believe that's G8, 8 and 9, I believe.
Okay. Now, with all of these items, Agent Lucero, would those be consistent with somebody being thrown out of a vehicle in close proximity?
To be honest with you, I mean, they appear to be items that didn't belong on the scene. but they could be consistent from, being thrown out of a vehicle or dumped out of a bag or.
Okay. Now, also, did you have occasion to see a pair of handcuffs?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Mark it as State's Exhibit 424. Let me hand you again what's been marked as State's Exhibit 424 for identification. Can you identify the bag?
Yes, sir. This bag was the pair of handcuffs or hinged handcuffs that I collected and labeled, sealed and labeled.
Is it still in the same condition as you indicated back in May 25th?
Yes, it is.
We'd ask to admit State's Exhibit 424. Can you please open that? You have gloves?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a pair of gloves. Are these the handcuffs that you got at the scene?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Do you have markings of any sort to identify them? Or do you recall them?
The markings on the handcuffs indicate Nigel.
Okay. And they're opened up, is that correct? They're not, what do you say that?
Yeah, they're not, they're open at this point. They're not in hinge or in a position that they would be carried on patrol.
Okay. Let me, if you can put those back in the bag, and I'm going to show you some photographs as to where.
So I'll put that on the bottom so that you can see it.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 46. Where is the handcuffs located in that photograph?
I can't really make that out. I believe it was item G13, which is down here.
Okay. There we go. Is it right there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as they were in the package, they were photographed at the scene. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 44. Is that the same pair of handcuffs that we just saw?
Yes, it is.
And they were in that condition when at the scene?
Yes, yes, they were.
Also, did you observe a black shirt there at the scene?
Yes, we collected a black shirt that had been torn and reportedly used as a tourniquet. And then we also collected a blue in color, or a navy blue uniform shirt from Officer Benner.
Okay. Let's see, I think I have a photograph of this. Yeah, black shirt. Let me hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 429 for identification. Do you recognize that packaging, Agent?
Yes, I do.
Is that your packaging?
Yes, sir, and it was labeled, or sealed and labeled with my initials.
Is it still in the same condition as the time that you labeled it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We move into admission State's Exhibit 429, Your Honor. Can you please open? I'm going to have you keep your gloves on, Agent Romero.
Okay.
Show it to the jury.
Sort of two pieces, that being one piece.
Is it the undershirt of a uniform of somebody, or the actual uniform of the individual?
It appears to be the undershirt.
Okay. You can package it, please. Okay. Also, Agent Lucero, going down the list here, did you observe get a flashlight holder and or photograph a flashlight holder G15 and G16, a rear body armor panel? Did you observe?
Yes, Agent Vargas photographed it. I identified it. Yes, sir.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 433. Can you indicate where the G15 is and G16?
So again, G15's at the bottom center of the screen, and G16 sort of at the top middle section. So G16 right here and G15 right there.
Okay. Now, you talk about a black rag, is that correct? Or something black?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As G17, let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 435. Is this the black rag that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Let me just put this away before I lose it. Thank you. Also, did you have occasion to have a black duty belt?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and that is marked as G19. Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 436. Does that show the duty belt at the time that you obtained it?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Let me hand you what's been marked. May I approach, Your Honor? I apologize for not. State's Exhibit 425 for identification. Can you identify the package?
Yes, this is a package of G19, the black duty belt.
And how do you recognize it?
It looks like this has been opened after I sealed it, but the initial seal and label on it was initialed by me and dated by me.
Okay. Does it fairly accurately represent at the time that you
Yes, it does.
package it? We move into Admission State's Exhibit 425, Your Honor.
Without objection.
Can you open it, please?
Yes, sir.
That's the actual duty belt of the officer, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Before I go any further, I forgot to move into admission 424, the handcuffs.
Without objection.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Let me show you here, Agent Lucero, the item, the black duty belt. Looking at it from here, that it doesn't have any of the things that it depicts here in the photograph. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. All the items that were on the duty belt were collected and labeled as G19, A, B, C, and so on, for the exception of Officer Benner's firearm. That was collected and labeled as a separate number.
Okay. Now, on the photograph, it appears that the officer's revolver or handgun is still in the holster position.
Yes, sir. There was a handgun in the holster position, and the safety hood to the, at the time, the hood to the firearm was in the up position.
In the what position?
In the up position.
What does that mean?
Meaning that Officer Benner, during the time of the incident, didn't open or attempt to retrieve his weapon.
Now, also, it indicates there that there were other items appears to be on the belt. Do you recall what other items were on the belt?
Yes, sir. I believe there was a taser, a flashlight, another set of handcuffs that were actually locked in his handcuff case, and two firearm magazines containing 7 cartridges in each.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 434. When we talk about number 19, we're talking about this area right here, the handcuffs that were...
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, was the taser also in the little compartment? I don't know where it's at, officer, agent, I'm not familiar with...
Yes, sir. The taser also has a hood that flips forward upon when the weapon's extracted, the same as the firearm. Both the taser and the firearm were in position with the hood up, which would indicate to us that during the incident, Officer Benner never attempted to pull either the weapon or the taser.
Okay. Can you put that back in, please? I think there's something else in this bag here, Agent Lucero.
So this was attached, and this had a portable radio.
And you also indicated, Agent Lucero, that the magazines, which are the clips, I guess we'd call them, were still in the little compartment.
Yes, sir. He had 2 magazines in his magazine holster, and each magazine contained approximately 17 cartridges.
Okay. Now, did you also observe at the scene a blue Rio Rancho Police Department shirt?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and that was G20. And let me hand you, let me show you State's Exhibit 437. Is this what we're talking about?
Yes, it is.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor? Let me hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 475 for identification. Can you identify that package?
Yes, this is G20, which is a blue Rio Rancho PD shirt with suspected blood stains, and it was sealed and initialed by me.
By you? Is it still in the same condition that you recall?
Yes, it is.
We'd move into admission, State's Exhibit 475, Your Honor.
Without objection.
Go ahead and open that. Agent, sir. Maybe you can hold it up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And I go, again, I show you State's Exhibit 437. Is that the same shirt list there on the ground?
Yes, it is.
Okay, if you can put it back in the package, please. Do you know, Agent Lucero, whose shirt that was?
Yes, sir. That belonged to Officer Benner.
And the other undershirt, the black one, do you know who that belonged to?
Yes, sir. That belonged to Officer Benner as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm going to show you what's been, again, marked, admitted as State's Exhibit 437. G21, do you recall what that was?
I'm having difficulty reading.
I showed you the legend when you
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So G21 was the tan 511 tack belt that was underneath the duty holster.
Okay. Now, and that was tagged into evidence, is that correct?
Yes, it was. It was collected and tagged in evidence.
Collected and tagged, okay. I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 440. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that shows?
I believe G22 was labeled as a tourniquet, and G23 was labeled as a pair of scissors used in administering aid.
Okay, let me give you the legend back again and maybe refresh your recollection. G22.
Again, so a green bag containing medical supplies, and then G23 was a pair of scissors, medical scissors.
G24, show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 442. What is G24? Oops.
So G24 was a package from a SWAT tourniquet, or a wrapper, I guess you'd say.
And was that collected and tagged?
Yes, it was.
Additionally, Agent Lucero, was there a projectile that was located on the scene?
Yes, sir. So at approximately 6:50 in the morning, Sergeant Soriano and members from FBI conducted or did a grid search of the area west of the patrol unit towards the east or towards the west. And during that search, they located a projectile jacket.
Okay. Again, can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a projectile jacket is?
Yes, sir. So, so the casing basically has the powder. If you look at a whole bullet, in front you have the projectile, and then sort of around it, a lot of times you'll have a jacket that sort of encases it. When the projectile and the jacket go through the chamber, depending on what they hit, a lot of times if they hit skin, bone, it could separate the lead core from that jacket. And so we found the jacket sort of west of Officer Benner's unit.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 94. Is that the cone of G28?
Yes, it is.
And that would depict the jacket.
Yes, it is.
And State's Exhibit 95, is that what's that?
So that's a close-up or close-up picture of that jacket, projectile jacket.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 96,
Again, another view or another angle of that same projectile jacket.
okay, it appears that at the bottom of the jacket, it's got metal still on it. Is that how it works?
So typically, in this particular case, what happens is when the projectile enters an item, they're designed to sort of split open or flower open like that. And the reason for that, right, is to slow them down so that they don't over-penetrate. In this case, that's what happened, right, when it went through whatever object it went through, that it peeled back, and that's what caused the peeling. And then obviously it was separated from the lead core.
Okay. Let's see what this is. Now, also, did you obtain a glass pipe at some point in your investigation at the scene?
Yes, we did. And again, that item was located by Sergeant Soriano and the FBI conducting the grid search of that area.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 98. What does that show, officer? Do you recall?
Yes, sir. So I believe it shows the bush and G, I believe 29 on the bush back there.
Okay, let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 99. Does that show a closer view of the bush?
Yes, it does.
And of course, State's Exhibit 100, closer view.
Yes, it does.
State's Exhibit 101.
So that picture depicts what was actually in the bush below.
Where is the pipe?
It's the blue in color, blue with black striping.
Okay, and State's Exhibit 102.
Yeah, again, so it's the blue with the black striping on it.
Additionally, at the scene, did you happen to collect and tag a repair invoice that was located in Officer Benner's vehicle?
Yes, we did.
Let me show you what's been marked as, admitted States Exhibit 109. Does that show the receipt?
Yes, it does.
And what, is that the receipt? Closer view.
Yes, it is.
Did you collect and tag that into evidence?
Yes, I did.
Additionally, did you collect and tag a driver's license belonging to Tabitha Littles?
Yes, I did. It was located on the floorboard of the driver's side of the patrol unit.
Let me show you what's been admitted as States Exhibit 111. Does that picture show where you located the driver's license?
Yes, it does.
And States Exhibit 112 is the actual driver's license.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, did you happen also, Agent Lucero, locate Officer Benner's badge?
Yes, we did.
And did you collect and tag that into evidence?
Yes, we did, and that was located on his duty shirt, on his duty uniform shirt.
And approach you. Let me hand you States Exhibit 426 for identification. You're
So
recognized.
this item is labeled as G20A, which is the Rio Rancho Police Department badge 163, and it is the package that, the item I collect, or the
Remove
package.
that evidence, Your Honor.
We got it.
Can you open it, please?
Yes, sir.
Can you show it to the ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
And that was on Officer Benner's, the blue
The,
Rio Rancho police uniform.
yes, sir.
Thank you. If you can put it back in the pack. Additionally, Agent Lucero, sorry, also in the shirt, did you happen to locate a notebook, a pair of glasses, business card case for Officer Benner?
Yes, I did.
Okay. May I approach your honor? Let me hand you what's been marked as States Exhibit 428 for identification. Can you identify?
Yes, sir. It's identified as G20D, which is a notebook, pair of glasses, and a business card case. It does have my initials and date on it.
And it hasn't been opened?
Not to the best of my knowledge.
We move into admission States Exhibit 428, Your Honor.
Without objection.
Can you please open that?
Yes, sir.
Agent Lucero?
So again, a pair of glasses, business card holder with Greg Nigel Benner on the back, and a notebook containing some information. This is the way it was clipped at the time that we collected it.
Okay, so and it's the same as, was it in his pocket or where was it located?
Yes, sir. It was in his, I believe, right shirt pocket.
Okay, if I could have the notebook, please. Was the same writing on that notebook as is depicted in 420, States Exhibit 428?
Yes, it is.
The notebook part of that, is that in the same condition as it was when you collected it and tagged it into evidence on May 25th or thereabouts of 2015?
Yes, it is.
And what's the name on that?
I believe it's Albert Fresquez, with a, I believe to be a date of birth of 2/3/87.
Okay, thank you. If you can put those back in, Agent, please. Well, let me take a look at that. On the other side of it, of the notebook that is clipped, one side has Albert Fresquez, and the other side has various other writings. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Andrea Bozer, I guess you'd say,
Yeah, I believe that's what it
and
says.
Angela Vigil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, part of your investigation, as you indicated, as crime scene manager, you had instructed Officer or Agent Vargas to do photographing as well as, was there any other duties that you required him to do?
Well, I assigned him to photograph all the items of evidence that were identified, and I also assigned him to identify any suspected bloodstains that were on scene and to conduct a bloodstain pattern analysis on those bloodstains.
Okay. If I can step back here, I found a package that I was supposed to hand to you. Let me hand you what's been, again, may I approach, Your Honor? States Exhibit 427 for identification. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do. This is evidence item G20B, and it's described as the name tag listed for Officer Benner.
Can you open that, please? Just be careful, please.
Again, this is a name tag that we collected off of Officer Benner's uniform, stating G. Benner.
Okay. If you can put it back in the package, Agent. Yes, sir. If you can have, let me give that to them. Thank you. Now, Agent Lucero, I interrupted you. Agent Vargas was asked to do...
Mr. Lopez, you want to move that into evidence?
Oh, yes, I move States Exhibit 427.
Without objection.
Sorry. Now, Agent Lucero, you indicated that Agent Vargas, you had assigned him to do additional duties other than photographing. What did you have him also do?
Yes, I also assigned him to document the various suspected bloodstains that were on scene, and to conduct an analysis and a bloodstain pattern analysis on those stains.
Did he collect any swabs at the time?
Yes, he did. I believe he collected a total of 15 separate swabs.
Okay, let me hand you what's been marked.
says that they can complain.
Okay. And may I approach you? Let me hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 476 for identification. Do you recall that?
So again, this wasn't the initial package that the swabs were collected in. There appears to be all the different labels for each swab, as in SW1 through SW14, and I believe they're in this package.
Okay. As was done in the other photograph that we showed, the diagram that showed all of the cones and where they were located,
Yes, sir.
was one done for the blood stains also?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me show you what's been marked, admitted as State's Exhibit 397. I think that's how I could put it. Would that be the diagram?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We move into admission, State's Exhibit 476.
Yeah, with the same qualification.
Obviously, they have to do qualification.
Agent Lucero, your involvement in this case as far as the crime scene manager, was there anything else that you recall that you did with ordering or supervising Agent Vargas and giving him his task, and I guess Agent Brunson to go to the other scene at that point? At the scene, was there anything else that you recall?
At that time, no, there wasn't.
You were involved also with the reshoot, I guess, or had some involvement with the reshoot of the scene with Miss Myers? Was that?
Yeah, the witness perspective,
Right.
yes, sir.
Okay, and you just assisted with that?
Yes, sir. So Agent Vargas was assigned to document the scene with photographs. We documented them shortly after our arrival, and then they were documented again with photographs near around the time and daylight that Officer or Miss Myers remembered it to be during the incident.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions of this witness, and I'll pass the witness at this time.
Good afternoon, Agent.
Good afternoon.
All right, so when you arrived at this scene, the determination was made that the state police would handle evidence documentation, correct?
At the crime scene, yes, sir.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the crimes, I mean the initial crime scene where Officer Benner was killed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when we talk, these photographs you've already identified and talked about, the yellow cones are Rio Rancho PD, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Those cones were placed on the scene.
Now,
at Rio Rancho.
there are also some orange cones, and then you've already identified a variety of green cones, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. What are the orange cones?
So the orange cones describe, they were placed on the scene by Agent Vargas, and those describe the suspected blood stains that were located on scene.
Okay, so when the jury's going through these many photographs,
Yes,
the
sir.
distinction between, when you say G, whatever number, that's green cone, and that's an item of evidence.
Yes, sir.
There will be, in many instances, a corresponding yellow cone that you don't make reference to, but that are still in the photographs, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the orange cones, yeah, kind of the fluorescent orange, those are suspected blood stains that Officer Vargas put down.
Yes, sir.
And so there's, so when we see these cones, I'm going to show you what's previously been marked as Exhibit 42, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So this has previously been marked as 42. So you're looking at what's been previously marked as Exhibit 42, State Exhibit 42. The 5 and 10 in the foreground, are those yellow, green, or, I mean, they're a little bit distorted, the color's a little distorted because of the proximity, maybe the flash. But
Yes.
what color are those?
So the number 10 is a green cone.
Okay.
And the number 5 is a yellow cone.
I see, and they're marking, so yellow 5 is the same as green 10.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we look at what's previously been marked as States 26, does this give an overall view of what you've previously described as the location where the officer's duty belt was and where his items of clothing were, and then also where the shell casings were found?
Somewhat. The shell case, so Officer Benner's...
So let me stop you. Why don't you come down here and point?
Oh, okay.
Just so the jury knows what we're talking about. And if you'll use your pen just to point first to where Officer Benner's body was when they were working on him, and then where the shell casings and such were.
Okay. So Officer Benner's was in this location right here. His duty belt was located in this location. The casings are in this area right in here. I believe G1 is a little bit off the photo there.
Okay. And then what are those cones? What are they depicting? If we haven't talked about them yet, maybe we can talk about them now.
Which cone is that, sir?
Well, this collection right here.
Okay, so those are, again, the green cones signifying items of evidence. For example, G11 was a Cheeto bag. And then the red cones are signifying the suspected blood stains that were in that area.
Although it's a little bit diffused because of photograph quality, but that's the Cheeto bag right there.
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay, so when we look at the close-up, just on a larger reference, this is where the Cheeto bag came to rest.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, you can sit back down. And officer or agent, you've come to learn through the course of the investigation, either directly or indirectly, that there was blood on that Cheeto bag, right?
Yes, there was.
All right, and you didn't have anything to do with the testing. Maybe that's for somebody else later.
Yes, it is.
But that Cheeto bag was collected. It was collected just like all of the other evidence, correct?
The Cheeto bag was collected, and I believe Agent Vargas also collected 2 swabs from the suspected blood stain on the Cheeto bag.
Got it. Okay. Now, exhibit number 32, which you looked at a moment ago, depicted several shell casings. And just for the jury edification, G3, G4, G5, and G2 were shell casings, right?
Yes, they were.
All right. And they were all recovered in the same general proximity that has previously been exhibited to the jury, correct?
Yes, they were.
Let me see if I can find the corresponding exhibit. Bear with me. Well, while our co-counsel's going to find that photograph, let me ask you about G28. Now, G28, we know from your previous testimony, is the jacketed projectile, right?
Yes, yes,
All
sir.
right. That was discovered the next day during an FBI canvass?
Yes, sir. Well, it was still part of the ongoing investigation, but it was discovered approximately a little bit after 7 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 projectiles were recovered from Officer Benner's body, right? That's what you know?
Yes, sir.
One was recovered from Tabitha Little's foot.
Yes.
It was some amount of feet, but that's about all we know.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so one of the things you've done over the years as an accident reconstructionist or accident reconstruction specialist is shooting reconstruction, correct?
Objection, I don't think he was qualified as an accident reconstructionist. I think we were talking about crime scene manager.
Well, I haven't asked my question yet, but I'll get to it. Did you do do a shooting reconstruction in this case?
No, we did not.
Okay. And just let the jury know, what would a shooting reconstruction be?
Well, in order to conduct a shooting reconstruction, we would need 2 points, or typically 2 points are required. And what we would do is we'd be able to, based on the known points that we find on scene, we would be able to analyze that data sort of backwards, if you will, and somewhat place a shooter in a certain location. In this particular case, we didn't have any secondary impacts of the projectiles, so we weren't able to do it.
So, and the reason I ask is we have item G28 laying in the road.
Yes, sir.
But you weren't able to use item G28 to aid you need sort of shooting reconstruction, correct?
It's difficult to do with items that move.
Right.
If we had impacts on a wall or impacts on a vehicle or things of that sort that weren't easily moved, we possibly could have done
Okay.
something.
All right, so I guess the short answer to my question is no. The item G28 didn't enable you to do a shooting reconstruction in this case, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the key card that was recovered that you identified previously, were you able to link that key card with any individual involved in this case or associated with this case?
So I did not personally. I collected the item and packaged it, and that was all I did with that card. I'm not sure if anybody else.
Okay, very good. The also there are times that you're called upon as a crime scene manager, crime scene specialist to do blood pattern analysis, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that was actually done by another officer in this case, right?
Yes, sir. Agent Vargas.
Agent Vargas, and Agent Vargas collected blood swabs of blood on the scene, right?
Yes, sir.
And do you know, or have you become aware as to whether there were any blood swabs or swabs of suspected blood taken from the Durango?
To my knowledge, there was not any suspected blood stains. I believe there was some DNA swabs collected, but not blood stains.
Okay. And if there had been blood on the Durango, that's something you would have, at least you presume you would have been made aware of?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But to the best of your knowledge, even while there were DNA samples taken from the Durango, there was no blood recovered from the Durango, either interior or exterior?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Now, let's talk about these shell casings for a moment. And the weapon in question here is a Beretta, right?
Yes, sir.
Semi-automatic,
Yes, sir.
9mm.
Yes, sir.
All right. And when a semi-automatic weapon is fired, after the trigger is pulled, the projectile goes downrange, then the mechanism of this weapon will eject the spent casing.
Yes, sir.
And will automatically load another cartridge in the firing position.
Yes, sir.
Right? With the hammer back, ready to fire a second time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then a third time and a fourth time until the magazine is empty, because the magazine has a spring that will carry the unspent cartridges into the firing position, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And each time the trigger is pulled and the projectile is sent down the barrel, the mechanism is to throw the slide back and then bring the unspent cartridge into the firing position, as we've already said, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And as that cartridge is expelled or ejected from the ejection port, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm using the proper term, right? Ejection port. The cartridge leaves the gun, right?
Yes, sir.
And will land wherever, so long as it's unobstructed, so long as it doesn't hit something, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I know you've been asked this question many times in the course of you being an agent, but there's no real science to ejection patterns, right?
It's based on the individual weapon.
Okay.
And that's actually, that's something that the lab tests. Whenever they have the weapon, they'll fire the weapon with the same type of ammunition, and they'll be able to determine, if possible, right, they'd be able to determine if that was, come up with a pattern, per se.
In this case, you didn't do any sort of ejection pattern analysis, right?
No, sir.
All right. And while the jury can clearly see that these four casings, G, 2, 3, 4, and 5, are in relatively close proximity, there's no testimony you have to offer the jury about the location of the person who pulled the trigger, right?
No, sir.
You can't say whether they're outside the car or inside the car, right?
No, sir. The only thing I can say is that their hand was outside the car when the vehicle, their hand or body was outside the vehicle when the casing or when the shots were fired. Reason being, right, is we have the casings outside on the ground.
You have the casings outside on the ground. That's
Yes,
right.
sir.
And during the entirety of your investigation, you never came to learn there were any shell casings inside the suspect vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. There
Or
aren't.
there's not.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's not.
All right. All right. Counsel for the state asked you a moment ago about the consistency of the items on the ground with having been thrown out, right? Thrown out of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's a difficult question because you're not a mind reader, right? You weren't there.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
So you're tasked with recreating the scene or reconstructing the scene best you can, right?
In this case, we didn't do any type of reconstruction.
Okay. So your task was to document the evidence at hand, right?
To document the evidence where we located it.
And the last thing you want to do is speculate about things.
Yes, sir.
And so when the state asked you, is this consistent with having been thrown out, your answer was, I don't know. I don't know if it was thrown out. These items didn't appear to have belonged where they were found. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you don't know whether it was consistent with being thrown out, or consistent with a struggle, or consistent with falling out of somebody's purse. You just don't know. You just know they're at the scene.
Objection, Your Honor, I believe he testified that they were consistent with being thrown out. I believe that was his testimony.
All right, officer. You don't want to ever speculate, right?
No, sir.
Okay. So while you may indicate they're consistent with being thrown out of the car, there's also other things they'd be consistent with, right?
Yes, sir.
A struggle, perhaps.
Yes, sir.
Somebody dropping their purse and things falling out of their purse.
Yes,
right? There's a myriad of possibilities, right?
Yes, sir.
And the last thing you want to do is speculate, right?
Yes, sir.
So you just don't know.
I don't know.
Okay. One of the reasons that you tasked Agent Vargas with analyzing or taking blood swabs or swabs of blood was to perhaps figure out where any individual's blood was at the scene, right?
Yes, sir. He was tasked with identifying and collecting and analyzing those things.
And it turned out there was more than one person's blood present at the scene, right?
Yes, sir. It was.
Okay. And everybody learned later that an individual was cut on the hand while he was trying to render aid to Officer Benner, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But one of the things you found that there were blood droplets, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And perhaps Agent Vargas is the better person to testify since he learned the location or was able to document the location of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, one of the exhibits you were asked to identify was a driver's license belonging to Tabitha Littles, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that was found in the floorboard of Officer Benner's vehicle, correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Never asked to speculate how that might have gotten there, right?
No, sir.
It just came to rest by whatever mechanism on the floorboard of this car.
Yes, sir. We identified it in that location and collected it from that location.
And then the other thing you found at the scene was the repair invoice for at least presumably the suspect vehicle, right?
Yes, sir.
But it was in Tabitha Little's name, correct?
I believe it was her parents' name.
Parents' name.
Yeah.
All right. And then in the notebook, or the small notebook that was found on Officer Benner's body, right?
Yes, sir.
That would be his duty notebook where he jots down notes and such?
I would assume so.
Okay. That's consistent with what other officers carry?
Yeah, I carried something similar to that when I was patrolling.
The name was Albert Fresquez?
I believe so. That's what it looked like.
Okay. With the date of birth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nowhere in that notebook that you recall was there any reference to Andrew Romero?
I did not look through the entire notebook. As I stated, it was collected as it was penned, and it was marked into evidence that way.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Pass the witness.
Agent Lucero, Mr. Clark talked about the casings. Do you recall what type of casings they were, what caliber?
Yes, sir. They were all 9mm Luger casings.
Okay. And they were sent up to the crime lab, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. He also asked you about if there was any unspent cartridges in the Durango that you know of. Are you aware that there was a unspent casing, or a spent casing in the Durango? Are you aware that there was an unspent cartridge, an actual bullet that was found in the Durango?
Yes, sir. There was no, as far as I'm aware, there was no unspent casings in the Durango, but there was a projectile that was located in the Durango, and it was similar to the casings found on scene, which is a 9mm Luger
Okay.
round.
Let me show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 179. Is that the cartridge?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you said it was, and what caliber was that?
9mm
And
Luger.
Luger also?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yes, he made a
Yes.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
Take a 15-minute recess.
All right.